an event that still holds up today with one of the best pay-per-view main events that the company put on in the decade. I'm John Rethlin with a retro review of WWE In Your House Mind Games, taking place in Philadelphia. A lot of ECW chants, and ECW even got briefly involved in the opening match. Vince, JR, and Mr. Perfect on commentary. Mr. Perfect would leave the company soon after this, a few months after this, and go to WCW. To be fair, I don't blame him. He probably got a much more lucrative offer. And we start off with Justin Hawk Bradshaw, the future JBL, by the way, in case you don't know, versus Savio Vega. Why was Harvey Whippleman? Just why was he? He was the referee, but just why was he in general? Pretty scuzzy individual. I felt like I needed to be pressure washed every time I saw him on TV. But anyway, it's a Caribbean strap match. It starts quick, a lot of ECW chants, and the ECW talents like Sandman throws beer on Savio Vega just to get some attention because they were going to start a working relationship, so to speak, because Vince McMahon realized, shit, Heyman's got some really good ideas, and he's more balls out than I am, and other people had to convince Vince, basically, convince him, if you will, that his company needed to change. Now, 96, things started to turn a bit of a corner, even though Vince still had some issues and still had some gimmicks that he needed to get out of the cartoonish gimmicks and everything. And thank God he doesn't have, an over-reliance on cartoonish bullshit now, except he kind of does. But anyway, the ECW chants popped up. Sandman, Dreamer, and a few others got, removed from the front row area, which was kind of cool. Some heavy strikes with the strap. That was actually some pretty good stuff, and some good teases about who would get the fourth corner, because in a strap match or a chain match or whatever, you have to touch all four corners in succession. And Bradshaw and Vega had tagged, or Savio, I really should say Savio, because if I say Vega, people might think I'm talking about Zelina Vega. As funny as that would have been, it would have been a bit awkward because she wasn't very old by this point. Anyway, I digress. They were both touching the corners, and then they were 3-3, and then Vega, Savio gets whipped into the corner and wins it 4-3, and Justin Hawk Bradshaw is all upset. But it was a fun opener. It was only about 7 minutes, and then we get Jim Cornette versus Jose Lothario. But before that, we get the fake Razor and the fake Diesel that would later become Kane. Kane had a lot of bullshit gimmicks, even pre-WWE. It's amazing that he survived Isaac Yankem and fake Diesel and stuff like that, and they beat up Savio Vega backstage. That was a great idea, except it totally fucking wasn't, and it backfired on them, and JR turning heel and getting cheered a lot. It did not have the desired effect that they thought it would. Cornette cuts a promo, and then gets quickly beaten. I mean, neither guy should have had a really long match. Lothario was in his early 60s, and Cornette was a manager. He was just out there to get beat up, and that's what happened. Then commentary laid into Cornette's look and gear and all that, so it was just a comedy match. The dark matches, by the way, were Jake Roberts versus Triple H, Farouk versus Mark Merrow, and Sid versus Vader. And the last match there, would actually tie into what happened in the main event. We then get Brian Pillman showing up, and then we have a video of Brett saying that him and Owen are liars, that he has not contacted them, even though Brett would turn heel a few months after he came back to the company. And then Brian cuts a promo slamming Philly, because he never had any interaction with the city of Philly, not in ECW for a little bit. He was, of course, dealing with the after effects of his ankle injury, which unfortunately that and a few other things would lead to his untimely death about a year after this. Very, very sad indeed. Here's Owen Hart, and they cut down Brett and say he's afraid of Steve Austin, the King of the Ring winner. So Steve Austin comes out. This is most notable for the famous line that Austin cut in the early part of his WWE run. If you put the letter S in front of Hitman, you have my exact opinion of Bret Hart. That's some pretty good shit right there. Do you see what I did there? This was actually pretty good. It was a pretty good promo. I thought it was going to be filler at first, and I was like, oh yeah, Austin said this line, and it actually served a purpose. And then we get the Smoking Guns with Sonny versus Owen and Bulldog with Clarence Mason, because Cornette could not go out there with his guys because he was beat up. Because Jose Lothario just laid him out and absolutely beat him up, and he's selling everything. So Clarence Mason's out there, and it's a WWE Tag Team Championship match. And of course, Sonny, being an expert, being repeatedly tag teamed throughout her career and her life, because it's the only way she stayed famous, because she had no talent and then continued to cut down people that were vastly more talented than her. Sonny should have never been inducted into the Hall of Fame, because all she's done is shit on women since. Maybe for money, maybe not, maybe just verbally. I don't know. I don't really want to find out more about that. But honestly, this is a heel versus heel match. that fucking worked. Now, the Guns, I guess, technically were supposed to be the faces, but they were being a lot more heelish here. They were, targeting Owen and Bulldog, who were a little more over in Philadelphia, though the match did get a pretty positive reaction, and the Guns had a miscommunication, and we ended with a power slam, 1, 2, 3, and new champions Owen and Bulldog. They would win the championships here, and then they would hold them, I think, till about June of the following year, and then they would lose them to Austin and Shawn for a little bit. Just when they were building up, when they had an unlikely alliance / feud, they were going with Austin and Shawn Michaels. Before Shawn really, had his issue. I mean, he had lost his smile but come back just because he wanted to avoid dropping the title to Brett. And Shawn Michaels was a bit of a douche back then, wasn't he? However, this match was pretty damn good and was quite enjoyable. And Sunny fired the Guns because she was just upset. Also note, before this match got started, Sunny usually got, a giant poster that fell down. Well, there was defacing and everything, to Sunny, love Owen and Bulldog. But of course, Bulldog had to have said the iconic line. It wasn't even there, it was Owen. Bulldog and Owen were so great. I miss them both. I miss them both so much. They wouldn't have been wrestling by now, obviously. But they were taken way, way too fucking soon. And, especially Owen. First of all, I resent your tone. Boy, Vince should have been slapped for that. Anyway, Kevin Kelly interviews Mankind and Paul Bearer about the main event, and, just typical stuff here. Weird that Kevin Kelly would become one of the best commentators, head commentators in wrestling. And, I mean, he was always pretty good anyway, but his work in New Japan is just fan-fucking-tastic. Jerry Lawler insults crowd like only he does, insults Mark Henry and says he's going to give him a wrestling lesson. This is Mark Henry's debut, and it showed. Now, I never thought that Jerry Lawler was all that good. Lawler did take a pretty hard guardrail bump at one point. He was doing everything he could to make Mark Henry look good, but Mark was green. He was obviously green. He wasn't going to be all that great. And it was a 5-minute match that the crowd was into for about the first minute, and then they saw, oh shit, this isn't really going well. Lawler got, foreign object and everything, was hitting Mark Henry, but then he would get hit with a backbreaker, the over-shoulder backbreaker, and would tap out. And then the New Rockers, Leif Cassidy and known bowling alley murderer Marty Jannetty, and Triple H attacked Mark Henry and got laid out because that was just a way to get Mark Henry cheered. Didn't ultimately work, though. Mark kind of had a rough few years, first few years in WWE. And then we get In Your House, Buried Alive, plug for that. Oh yeah, we're Undertaker and Mankind, do the Buried Alive thing, and they have to send everybody out to bury Undertaker, because otherwise it wouldn't have fucking worked at all. Undertaker versus Goldust, final curtain match. I'm not sure if this is meant to be a hardcore match or what, because a lot of things were done, but they were done behind the ref's back, so it was a little bit weird. Taker was out for revenge. He had been feuding with Mankind, and then Goldust had also gotten involved. Mankind had stopped Goldust, or had stopped Taker from being able to, get a win over Goldust. In, at various points or whatever, he was feuding with both of them. This was a way to get Goldust more over. And he beat the shit out of Goldust in the beginning. And Taker at one point lifting up Marlena because he was tired of her, and she just had this terrified look, to be fair. I mean, she was 5'2", so I'd be scared even though Undertaker was a professional. And Goldust has this, bag of glitter, gold glitter, and he just throws it pocket sand spot, which is pretty damn funny. And that blinded Undertaker, and Goldust took over for a bit, but then got hit with a top rope chokeslam, which was supposed to be where he would wind down, he would do over rotation and get him all the way down, and Taker just kind of dropped him. He didn't mean to, he just kind of dropped him ouch. It was just with a thud, and then a tombstone for 3. Shawn does a pre-match promo. And then the Druids bring out a casket with Mankind in, and Paul Bearer is there also. And they placed the casket so whenever you lifted the lid, about half, a little bit of half of the front row couldn't see. Couldn't see very well. They would have to stand up and look over. So that was kind of a dick move, even though it led to a cool spot later. Shawn versus Mankind WWE Championship match, and this is good shit. ECW chance. I'm not going to go through every single spot. This was pretty damn good, and here's why it was good. It was one of the rare matches where you could have a brawl and you could have, a non-finish, and the crowd still fucking loved it. Because Shawn had to retain. Mankind was rising up and everything after beating Undertaker in the Boiler Room Brawl when Paul Bearer turned on him. This was right after that. And it just still should have almost been a no DQ match, though, because they did so much shit. concrete bump. We got a lot of strikes. A bad step spot where Mankind's knee just got thrown into the goddamn steps. That was really brutal. At one point, Shawn decides to just target the hand of Mankind. Excuse me. He decides to target the hand of Mankind and basically just beat him up and everything. And, just like take out the mandible claw. That was some really good shit. Elbow to the floor, and then, the casket tease. Oh, Shawn's going to go in the casket. Nope, we get a table spot. And Mankind gets back up on the, on the ropes. He's got a chair. Oh no, his springboard, sweet chin music. Shawn's about to get the pin. And Mankind kicks out just as Vader's about to do his run-in. And Shawn battles with him. Despite all this shit and all these weapon spots, even though the referee didn't see them, he knew that there was some stuff that was happening. When Vader interfered, oh no, now we got to call DQ. And then Sid shows up. And everything, and we get them battling. Then we get the mandible claw. After Paul Bearer had cracked Shawn Michaels with the urn, we get a mandible claw on Shawn Michaels. And then, here's why it was so hilarious. It was after the match, so they're ringing the bell and everything. Vince is acting like, oh no, the match is still going on, and Shawn Michaels is going to lose, even though he won by DQ. And then they do the casket thing. Undertaker comes up, he attacks Mankind and beats him up and everything, beats the shit out of him, runs back, and Shawn Michaels celebrates winning the match. So it was really good stuff. This is a really, really fun pay-per-view. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, by the way. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.